Yes, a 6! Huh. Oh, hi there folks. You just caught me doing some tabletop gaming. You know what, seeing as I'm doing that and you're here right now, why don't we go through what tabletop gaming is in a broad sense and see if we can get some new tabletop gamers out there, as I appreciate you've probably not come to the Terrordome to watch tabletop gaming things. So, without further ado, let's get started and have a broad rundown of what tabletop gaming is. What is tabletop gaming, I hear you ask? Well, tabletop gaming can be anything from playing a board game with your friends and family, a bit like Monopoly, to a massive pitched battle of Warhammer where you're striving against each other to fight for objectives. It could be an imaginative game like Dungeons and Dragons where you're all trying to create a story and just have a good time. Or something like Magic the Gathering, a card game, and you might be in a tournament where you have to win against all odds. The second question that normally comes to people is, you know, what does attract people to tabletop gaming? And to me, there's many things. It's a very imaginative and creative process, and for me, what I got into the hobby for was the painting and the world building and the storytelling, and that's what you can definitely do with a lot of these games, even board games that seem to have a pre-set path to go along. For instance, Snakes and Ladders. You may think that is something that is very roll the dice, go up, roll the dice, go down. But no, imagine you had to create a story for that game. Imagine you're making a film. What can I make a film of Snakes and Ladders like? Or Shoots and Ladders, I think it's called in the US. Stuff like that. And I think the pinnacle of that is definitely Dungeons and Dragons, where you and your friends are literally creating a story just for the sake of creating a story. That brings me on to my next point. People do it to socialise a bit more and to meet new people. I've gone through this experience quite recently where I've moved around a lot and you know, in different places I've wanted to game. I've wanted to play a game with my friends, but you know, no one's been about. So I've gone to my local hobby store and been like, oh, you know, who's here to meet? Maybe we should set up a game of Warhammer 40k or Fantasy when we were playing that. It's, you know, there's not a lot said about winning in tabletop gaming. I know that's the whole premise of it, like to win a board game, to win a card game. To, you know, people might think, oh, you know, it's all about winning, and it's not. It's about socialising and making friends. And one of the biggest things is if you playing with a friend and you win, and they're happy for you to win, and they're having a great time telling the story as well. Then, you know, there's no downside to that. There's also a lot to be said about happiness through escapism as well. For instance, if you're sitting there painting a model and you're thinking to yourself, what can I do with this, and what colours match with each other, and you know, who would this person be on the tabletop? That helps free the mind, and it helps you think about other things, just even subconsciously, and you know, it helps you switch off from real life. And that, again, that's part of why I do it as well, and why the hobby was why I was drawn to the hobbies, is to, you know, just for a little bit of escapism and to relax a bit. And what are the benefits? We've talked about what attracts people to the hobby, but what are the benefits of it? Well, it's very much what I said before. You get a lot of socialising, and you might you know, you might be a nervous person suffering from anxiety, and to sort of thrust yourself into tabletop gaming might seem like the most difficult thing in the world, because, you know, you have to go and interact with other people, and you might be nervous, but you know, it helps us to develop social skills as well, and it helps us feel that confidence, and, you know, it helps us realise that, you know, it might all be down to fate. You might be sitting there, let's use Monopoly as a previous example, you roll the dice and you only go a few squares and you think, oh, that sucks, and you roll the dice again, you might go 12 squares and you think, wow, that was amazing. And, you know, for me, certainly in my formative years, it really prepared me for the rigmaroles of life. Like, you can't always be dealt the best hand, and you can't always be the luckiest person on earth, but, you know, when you are, it feels great, and when you're not, you take it as a learning curve and you know, grow from it. I mean, any form of game gives you loads of experience in problem solving skills and how to react to situations, again bringing us back to how to deal with stuff that isn't going quite right, and to overcome anxiety and stuff like that. And again, it'll help you develop your creating skills and your storytelling skills. I've recently started playing a few Dungeons and Dragons games and DMing a few Dungeons and Dragons game, and to sit there and to come to a conclusion with your friends about what's happening in the game, it's a really positive experience, and you know, it's helped me face my fear of meeting new people, because ultimately everyone is there to have a good time. A good benefit from it is just relaxation and getting in the flow of something that you don't really have to concentrate on, or you can pour all of your creative energy into. It helps the mind relax, and it helps you go through the things that you've experienced throughout the day. And again, that is something to me that makes it enjoyable, because I don't have to sit there and rigorously think about something. I can just switch off, relax. And there's a really good documentary called Happy, and it's on, I think it's on Netflix, but anyway, it talks about getting in the flow of something, and how that flow helps you feel accomplished, and it helps you solve other problems. Like if you work with your hands, you think about something in a different way than if you were just to sit there and think about it, and it's really interesting, so I'd give that a go. Yeah, and team building experience, Dungeons and Dragons, oh my god, team building, there's nothing else like it. You're all sitting there trying to figure out a way to beat the bad guy, or to open the crypt of Nazaron, or something like that. And you know, then to go back to another thing that I've watched in the past, there's a TED talk about how Dungeons and Dragons is, I think it's how it's great for team building, and you know, I'd give that a shot as well. Also, if you're a fan of, you know, if you like history, there's a lot of history parables in things like Warhammer and Warhammer 40k, you know, because people had to get inspiration to write these games and to write the scenarios and write all the background and fluff. And a lot of the passion for me also comes from history, like things you've heard about, like the Battle of Waterloo, and how that could fit into a fantasy-scape. Moving swiftly on, why should you start gaming? Well, maybe you have some time on your hands and you think, oh, I need something to really develop my my creativity. I'm writing a book and I want some new, fresh ideas. Again, tabletop gaming is something that you can really just let the events play out as they were. You can steer them in a certain direction, certainly, but you can let the events play out, and if other people think of cool things that you might be able to write into your story, or think of a way of solving a specific problem that you might be able to apply to your own day-to-day life, that's great. That's a bonus that you get from actually doing this. And even if it's just sitting at home, like I do a lot, and painting miniatures, and thinking, oh, actually that worked really well if I did that, and then subconsciously letting that sink in and saying to yourself, oh, actually no, I could apply that to something in my real life, in my work, or maybe at school, and just think, actually, yeah, that was really useful. I'm glad I took the 2 hours to do literally something I enjoy, and sit there and think, oh, I did a good job of that. Maybe I can do a good job with you know, a lot of other things that I do. And that definitely helped me when I was younger, you know, with self-confidence issues. You know, I did that and I think that's great, and other people will think it's great too. Another good thing is, if you're, I mean, it sounds weird, but if you really want to catch up on a series, or you're listening to podcasts or listening to music, and you want to listen to your favourite album, say, you can literally sit down, and if you're playing a game, you can sit there with your favourite album on with your friends, or if you're painting, you can sit there and listen to your favourite podcast, or maybe watch a film or series. And you know, it's shown that watching something while you're painting isn't the most productive thing in the world, but you know, it helps you. Feels like you're doing lots of things at once, and some people like that. I mean, I used to watch a lot of stuff on Netflix while I was painting Warhammer. Again, you meet new people. There's, you know, I've got firm friends now from all the different clubs that I've been to, and I hope, you know, I get around to playing with them all soon. I'm going back to London for a few weekends. I might see if there's some people from the local, well, from the gaming club down there that I used to play with, who want to play a game or two. And again, it's this thing where if you're moving to a new place, you might feel isolated and all your friends aren't there, and it's definitely a good way to meet new people and to chat about stuff that isn't about tabletop gaming. It might sound really counterproductive saying, I'm going to go and play a game of, I don't know, Kings of War, and then suddenly you're thinking, oh, but Will at the Terrordome said that we didn't have to speak about this. But you'll find that you strike up conversation with people who are like you, and you'll find new friends with interests that are similar. Like you'll be sitting there rolling dice and going, yeah, isn't this fun? Oh, but you know what this is like? This is like that film that I really like. Oh yeah. Or you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you'll turn to your friend and go, man, that was just like that scene in Lord of the Rings. I really like that. And that is probably within my top I don't know, top 5 benefits for tabletop wargaming, is just stopping yourself from feeling isolated. And even on social media, when you post pictures of models you paint and people, I don't know, retweet it or like it on Facebook, and you think, yeah, no, I've done well. That is, I'm glad other people are out there and they're like me as well. And it's, you know, and a lot of people who have come to this channel right now watching this, because this is one of my earliest videos, are sitting there thinking, oh, I want to listen to Jack talk about Jurassic Park. That's Jack back there, wooing, probably at the scene where, I don't know, the Dilophosaur spits on Nedry.
Get Nedry, yeah!
Yeah, it's a chance to try something new, try something different. And you know what, if you like it, you've got a new hobby. If you don't like it, you've tried something new, and you know that it's not for you, so there's more space in your life for things that you might encounter in the future that, you know, you will like. So on to probably my last point, and that is, where should you start? Well, let me tell you, you should start probably on the internet, with most things nowadays. Go out there and find examples of things you're really interested in. So you might be looking at sci-fi, and you can go find things that are sci-fi parables in the gaming world. You might like historic things, you might like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, which is my favourite series of films. What I would suggest for sci-fi would probably be Warhammer 40k. I know there'll be a lot of grumbling about that, but it is literally the mainstay, the baseline. Everyone who has heard, you know, everyone who's heard of tabletop wargaming or any miniatures games has probably heard of Games Workshop. They are undoubtedly the biggest one out there, you know, for all of their faults, which they do have some, and we'll do other videos possibly about the faults of Games Workshop or the good things that are now happening at Games Workshop. But I'd go and seek them out just for a baseline understanding of what tabletop gaming is. If you're into fantasy, yeah, again, my favourite game is Warhammer Fantasy. I know they've trashed that now for Age of Sigmar, but I mean, that, by all reports, that is good again, and I do hope to get into that as well. You might be into stuff that, you know, like historical, and I'd go and pick up Risk. If you've never played Risk, you're missing out. Risk is one of my favourite board games. You can sit there for hours and you can tactically manoeuvre your troops to go and, I don't know, conquer Russia, or you might need to take Australia, and you've got that little bit on the map where you can just funnel everybody else in and really take a hold of your own empire. Horror, I've played Zombicide. That is really good. That's a good sort of like sci-fi-esque horror game, and you should go and check that out. Yeah, card games, Magic the Gathering, again, another big one. I'm only really mentioning the big ones here just in hopes that you've heard of it. That's a really good one. I get periodically into that. I mean, I don't go out and buy all the new stuff, but it's always good to just have a game of that every so often. And again, it helps your logic, it helps your problem solving. So what you need is probably a hook. You need something that interests you about tabletop gaming. So for instance, you really like sci-fi or horror. Then you need to go out and you need to get the miniatures or the cards or a board game that you might want to play. And then it's time to get creative. For me, it's always been about painting and storytelling. I love to play, but painting and storytelling is where I started off, and watching your characters and your figures and your miniatures unfold on the table and get their own personality, even if it's rank and file models in like a massive game of 40k or Warhammer Fantasy, or even 9th Age, which I played a little bit now, or if you're doing a tiny little war bands, I don't know, like in Hordes or War Machine. Now, there are some negatives. The hobby can be a little bit expensive to get started in, but my advice would be go on eBay, go on Gumtree, all of the sort of the cheaper sort of like sales websites. You will find secondhand miniatures, and there is a lot out there, and you'll get them at a fair price. Not to say that you might not want to go into your local gaming store, because sometimes, like say gaming cafes or you know, the independent toy shops and gaming shops will sell at a little bit of a discount. But you know, if you don't mind spending the full amount, you can go straight into, say, a Games Workshop or online and just buy what you want. It can be hard to find others to play with, but again, like what I just said, go into your local gaming store, go into your local hobby cafe. There are loads popping up all over the place now. I come from a place called Norwich. I had no idea that there was one here until I moved back here, and you know, that's revolutionised the way that I now play games. It literally sets points in my week where I'll go and I'll play. And it's really fun meeting all the people and the local people that I know around here, and they know other people that I know, and it's nice just to bond. You make your friends at your local gaming cafe and you think, you know what, I really want to paint an army, but I don't feel inspired by that lack of inspiration. And I've felt this many times, watching films and reading books and all of the other creative things, or even just talking to other people, you'll suddenly get that spark of inspiration. And again, going and looking through examples on the internet or your local store, or pictures on Twitter or Instagram of other people's miniatures, and you'll think, that's it, that's what I want to do. I'm not going to do it exactly the same, I'll twist it, but that's what it's going to be like. And it doesn't have to be the best, and it doesn't have to be great, but as long as I am happy with it, then, you know, I'll get something out of it. And that to me is the crux of the issue. You'll feel accomplished. You'll feel accomplished from doing this, and ultimately, hopefully, you'll have picked up a new hobby that you enjoy. So, the top 3 to get you started, for me, if you are going into playing board games, I'd say Risk. That is a brilliant one. It's tactical. You can play with 1 or 2 people, or if you've got if your family want to play, all the better. 4 or 5 people makes it insanely fun. If you're looking for a big epic battle game, I'd go for something from Games Workshop, not because they're my favourite, but because they are the baseline of tabletop gaming. 40k is a brilliant one. Age of Sigmar, which is, you know, relatively new to the scene, I've not played yet properly. Warhammer Fantasy was always good, so, you know, Games Workshop, we know they can write games, not that they're, well, we'll go off on a tangent another time. If you're looking for something very imaginative, I would go for Dungeons and Dragons, something you can sit around your table and discuss. You don't need any miniatures necessarily, you don't need a board, you just need somebody who can narrate a story. And you can be that person, or you can find a group that does it as well. So that's what I'd do for an imaginative game. And do you know what, I'm going to add another one in there. I said 3, I'm going to do 4. Magic the Gathering, a card game. Again, nothing too much. You get yourself a small deck of cards and you go to your local gaming centre or local gaming shop and see if anyone else wants to play. That is where I would start with that, definitely. And they all have the Will seal of approval. I hope you enjoyed that introduction to tabletop gaming, and if you're new to it all, I hope you go out and give it a try. If you're an old hand at tabletop gaming, maybe you've gone away and you've thought, oh, I'm going to try that a little bit differently next time. Please keep an eye out for our new videos. I'm going to be doing some painting videos, some unboxings and reviews, a battle report or 2 maybe, and some tutorials on tabletop terrain. Also, keep an eye out for my highly anticipated White Dwarf Last Look review on White Dwarf, and what's hot or not in this month's magazine. So, thank you for watching. Please subscribe and comment on what you might want to see in the future, and follow us on Twitter at Terrordome 3000. This is Will, signing out of the Terrordome.